Saturday morning. I'm Derek Dukes. Now, just like I said in the preview, we're going to kick it off with Baltimore news. Loretta Lynch, who hasn't even been in a month, if it hasn't been a month rather, in office, is launching an investigation about to see did any Baltimore police committed any civil rights violations. This came, again, just to recap you, an armed African American teenager in Baltimore was died after his injury after the police refused to give him the proper medical attention. For the full report, we're going to toss it over to Lester Holt of NBC News.
The Justice Department announced today it is launching a civil rights investigation of the Baltimore Police Department that will go well beyond the death of Freddie Gray in police custody last month. We get more from our Justice correspondent, Pete Williams.
After 25-year-old Freddie Gray died from a spinal cord injury in the custody of Baltimore police, touching off days of peaceful protest and nights of unrest, and prompting a visit from the newly sworn-in Attorney General Loretta Lynch, today she said there's been a serious erosion of public trust and ordered a civil rights investigation of the entire police department.
This investigation will begin immediately and will focus on allegations that Baltimore Police Department officers use excessive force, including deadly force, conduct unlawful searches, seizures, and arrests, and engage in discriminatory policing.
Investigators will ride along with police on the beat, interview officers and community leaders, and analyze records of who's been arrested and for what. The news was welcomed by city leaders, the police union, and the lawyer for Freddie Gray's family.
The federal government has enormous additional powers than state government has. It has both the carrot and the stick.
In the past 6 years, the Justice Department has opened investigations or is enforcing court-ordered changes in 32 police departments and sheriff's offices in 18 states. Baltimore's police say they too welcome the investigation, but if they decline to make the recommended changes, the government can get a court to order them to do it. Pete Williams, NBC News.
In national security news, the security level for the United States has been risen. This is the first time since the 10th anniversary of the 9/11 terrorist attack it's been raised. For more on this story, we're going to toss it over to Fox News Channel to give you a better sense of how does this mean to you.
Has been raised at the U.S. military bases across the country. Jennifer Griffin is live. She's the one that first broke this news. Jennifer, what do you know?
Well, Jenna, what we know is that the force protection level has gone up to Bravo. It was ordered by the head of U.S. Northern Command due to unspecified terror threats based on recent activities of ISIS online, as well as threats to military personnel. I'm being told by spokesmen for the DoD as well as for Northcom that this was a prudent measure. It is not due to a specific terrorist threat, but a general terrorist threat based on the current situation with ISIS. Remember, the FBI director, James Comey, yesterday mentioned that there are ISIS cells here in the United States, and they have made threats online against U.S. military personnel. So this was a prudent measure. What it means in real terms is that there will be more guards at bases, more identification required to enter the Pentagon as well as military bases. It's going to mean long lines outside of bases with people showing two forms of military ID. There will be random exercises and drills. But what's significant about this, Jenna, is that this is the highest threat level since the 10th anniversary of 9/11. So it does show that there is very real concern about the ISIS threat, and that basically the commander of Northern Command, NORAD, who is in charge of the base protection here in the United States, feels that it is wise at this time to raise the awareness and threat protection level to Bravo, and that's what he has essentially done today.
And just to be clear, Jennifer, is it just domestically that we're looking at military bases, or is this worldwide?
Well, right now, the order came from U.S. Northern Command, NORAD. Northcom, and so it affects U.S. bases domestically. I'm not sure at this moment in time whether it also applies to bases overseas. They may have already been at a heightened threat assessment level because of all of the events that have been happening in Europe and elsewhere overseas. So I think what's new about this is that the domestic U.S. bases have been raised in terms of to level Bravo.
It's been a fast-moving week. We had that shooting in Texas on Sunday, a lot of different reports about ISIS and their presence here in the United States. Now we hear this on Friday. So certainly a lot of news to take in and continue to report on. Jennifer, thank you very much.
In the world of sports now, Tom Brady, which you pretty sure you know who he is. The quarterback of the New England Patriots, has been suspended 4 games in the regular season this coming year for his involvement of deflated footballs. Now, before we get into more details, here's a report from NBC News, once again by Lester Holt.
The long-awaited report is out tonight on the sports controversy that seemed to have the whole country talking back in January. And it is painting the New England Patriots and their superstar quarterback Tom Brady in a very harsh light. The issue is whether the New England Patriots cheated in the AFC title game against Indianapolis by underinflating the footballs they used, in theory making them easier to handle. And now that report, commissioned by the NFL, makes the case that some on the team probably did and that Brady was probably aware of it. NBC's Ron Mott is in Foxborough, Massachusetts with details and reaction. Ron, good evening.
Good evening, Lester. This was only supposed to take 3 weeks, this investigation. It lasted more than 3 months. The Patriots ownership and head coach Bill Belichick have been cleared of any wrongdoing. But tonight, the sports world is sounding off about Tom Brady, one of the best to ever play the game, and whether he's a cheater. Tom Brady addressed the public in January and denied any involvement in what's become known as Deflategate, intentionally removing air from footballs to make them easier to throw and catch.
I've always played within the rules. I would never do anything to break the rules. I believe in fair play and I respect the league.
But today, an NFL investigation led by Ted Wells found it is more probable than not that the 3-time Super Bowl MVP quarterback was at least generally aware of the inappropriate activities. The report said Patriots personnel were involved in a deliberate effort to circumvent the rules, that Jim McNally, a locker room attendant, and John Yastrzemski, an equipment assistant, participated in a deliberate effort to release air from Patriots game balls after the referee examined them.
There's a mountain of circumstantial evidence, although it still lacks that smoking gun.
The controversy stemmed from the AFC Championship game, in which the Patriots soundly defeated the Indianapolis Colts 45-7 to advance to the Super Bowl. Officials discovered 11 of 12 game balls used by Brady and the Patriots offense, different balls used by the opponent, were underinflated below the NFL minimum of 12.5 pounds per square inch. The investigation showed the 2 men disparaged Brady in text messages after he complained about football air pressure. McNally writing, "I'm going to make that next ball a balloon." Tom, 16 is nothing. Wait till next Sunday. NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell said the league will consider taking disciplinary action, saying in a statement, "We will continue our efforts vigorously to protect the integrity of the game and promote fair play at all times." Reaction by fans outside the team's stadium were mixed.
It's a shame, but I'll still be a Patriots fan, when it's all said and done.
He's carried himself over these last 14, 15 years as a pro, acted as a pro, is just as much a pro off the field as he is on the field. And I suggested what we're talking about as much ado about nothing.
At the Super Bowl, Patriots owner Bob Kraft demanded an apology from the NFL if the investigation turned up no proof of wrongdoing.
I would expect and hope that the league would apologize to our entire team, and in particular, Coach Belichick and Tom Brady, for what they have had to endure this past week.
Today, Bob Kraft issued a statement reiterating his disappointment in how this investigation was conducted, but said the organization will accept the findings and will take appropriate actions. Lester.
As I mentioned earlier, Tom Brady has been suspended for the first 4 games of the regular NFL season. The team has been fined $1 million, most in NFL history. And if you're wondering about the guys who was involved in the inflated football mess, let's just say that their services are no longer needed. Or in other words, they've been fired. And that's the way it goes. I guess Brady learned not to mess with depleted footballs or screw with balls of any juncture anymore. Finally today, as I mentioned, in this Keeping It Honest, I'm going to give my perspective on the guy who told us to fire up the Colortinis and watch the pictures as they float through the air. The man that I'm going to talk about is Tom Snyder. Now, Tom Snyder was the first host of The Late Late Show on the Columbia Broadcasting System, CBS, for 4 years until Craig Kilborn came in. After that, it was TV's Craig Ferguson and James, I forgot his last name, Curtin, who is now the current host of The Late Late Show. But before Mr. Snyder got into the Columbia Broadcasting System, he was with NBC, hosting a late night show over there known as The Tomorrow Show, who, again, no studio audience whatsoever. It was basically Tom, the camera crew, and the newsmaker, which I like to call her, or the guest in the talk show world, talking about current issues of the day. And Tom had the unique style of hard news and soft news when it comes down to interviewing anybody from politicians to celebrities. So his birthday was a couple days ago, the same days as mine. Tom Snyder was born May 12, 1936. As I mentioned, he hosted The Tomorrow Show on NBC before moving over to CBS and hosting The Late Late Show. I consider him to be a good journalistic role model for me because, let's face it, the way that he did late night, even though it was after Letterman and Leno and possibly not Leno, Johnny Carson, his unique brand of being himself and catchphrases and his wonderful laugh, he is surely missed. So, as we go off right now, you're going to enjoy a clip courtesy of the Columbia Broadcasting System, CBS, of what they did to him after he died a few years ago. So, Tom, wherever you're watching, I hope you have the Colortini ready as these pictures fly through the air. I'm Daryl Dukes, and this has been One Saturday Morning. If it's Saturday, then it's One Saturday Morning. Stay gold, everybody.
Settle back, fire up a Colortini, and watch the pictures as they fly through the air. Thanks for diving us up, everybody. I don't have to tell you, it's great fun spending other people's money. The first time I went to New York for NBC was in 1972. And there was a fellow over there at Burbank at NBC named Sid Graw, great guy who was in charge of the money. And he came to me, he said, Tom, we'd like you to go to New York for a week and do the news on the Today Show. Frank Blair is going to be on vacation. And how much expense money would you think you would have to go in there and, you know, cover yourself? I said, well, Sid, what do you normally give the guys and gals who go in there? And he said, $500. I said, geez, I don't think $500 is going to cover it. He said, well, what would you need? I said, $2,500. So he said, okay, and they gave me $2,500. I spent every quarter of it and more. Cassie Mackin was still living then, God rest her soul, the legendary NBC News correspondent in Washington. I took her to dinner a couple of nights, and I mean, we had flowers and we had the rides in the Hansom cab, not just Cassie Mackin, but other people as well, the boys and girls of NBC News. And I spent all the money. And I got back to Burbank, and about a month later, Sid came in my office. He says, you know, he said, we're going to have to settle up your expense account for the New York trip, the $2,500. I said, oh, gee, Sid, I forgot to tell you. I was robbed when I was in New York. He said, did they take the money? I said, no, they took the receipts. By the way, we just brought this from downtown. This is tomorrow morning's edition of the Los Angeles Times. Car bomb shreds federal building in Oklahoma City. Like all of you in this truly incredible day in America, like all of you, we awakened here this morning and turned on the television set and were absolutely horrified at the pictures coming out of Oklahoma City today. And the bombing there that has killed many, many people, including many, many children. And the first thoughts that you have are, you would expect this sort of thing, ironically, in New York City, which is a city on the Atlantic Ocean, an international marketplace, and people with gripes, would attack a place in New York as they did the World Trade Center some years ago, or Los Angeles on the Pacific Rim here. But I mean, this is Oklahoma. This is where the wind comes waving down the plain, and this is the Surrey with the fringe on top, and oh, what a beautiful morning, and people will say we're in love, and this isn't what you expect. This isn't acceptable in Oklahoma. So here, over the past 4 years, are people and Tom in situations that no other host would ever show because they're so embarrassing. Take a look. Now, the movie On the Airplane, which is where I started here, was the picture that he just made now with Helen Hunt. And he got the Best Actor award as good as it gets. Excuse me. as good as it. Come on, it slipped out. Come on.
Now we have such a sweet and wonderful relationship.
We are with Laura Dern, who's.
I like Nora better,
Fine.
actually.
I'm glad you do.
Or Lorna Doone. You could try too. It's just kidding.
Now, the bad songbook, and we're with Chuck Berry, my friends, came from excuse me, Dave Berry, my friends.
Thank you, Tom.
Let me ask you here about the high visibility that you and your husband, Tom Shanks, have to endure. And the reason I bring this
How'd you
up...
know about his shank?
I beg your pardon?
What? Huh?
What did I say? Tom Shanks. Oh, Tom Hank, I'm sorry. Reading about you this afternoon, you grew up both in Southern California and in Paris.
Well, actually, no. My mother grew up in Paris.
Like I said, you grew up in Southern California. Now, your mom was a journalist, as I read. She worked for a time for Vanity Fair magazine, right?
Well, she actually worked for Harper's Bazaar.
Harper's Bazaar.
Yes, she was. We're going to work this out, I'm sure.
I doubt it. Keep in mind, never sweat petty things and don't. Never sweat petty things and don't pet sweaty things. It was. Get off of me. And finally, may I thank you who have watched me and listened to me on radio and television for over 25 years in this country. You're great people to work for in this time period because you get it and because you understand it and because your curiosity and your interest in things surpass those of people who watch in other day parts. I am convinced of that. You know, you and I didn't get the greatest time period in the world. We got stuck with 1 o'clock in the morning. We don't get as big a crowd as they generate at 9 o'clock at night or at 11:30. In my particular case, we haven't won this time period against the competition in the 4 years plus I've been here. But I think we've had a wonderful time together, having fun and learning things about ourselves and about the world. Good night, everybody.